Hello, I'm Mark Hammett, minister of the Weber Road Church of Christ in Corpus Christi, Texas. Glad that you're able to join me for this daily devotional and Bible reading. I hope that you'll turn to Genesis 21. We'll be reading from that chapter in just a few moments. That's Genesis chapter 21 in the Old Testament, the first book of the Bible, and I'll be reading from the English Standard Version. You can read along with me or from whatever version you might have. There's a story about a pilot during World War I. One of our American airmen took off from an airfield located in Arabia. As the story goes, he didn't know that while the plane was on the ground, a large rat had crawled up and inside the cockpit. You know, I'm telling this now, my wife is probably going crazy. Ooh, she doesn't like rats, and probably many of you don't either. But while in the air, this pilot became aware of the rat's presence. He heard some gnawing behind him. Well, immediately he realized the sound that he was hearing was the sound of a rat. Well, he was alarmed. I mean, how could he get out of this disastrous situation? The pilot remembered that rats could not live at very high altitudes. And so the pilot did the smartest thing that he could. He pointed his airplane up. He climbed to an altitude where breathing for him was difficult. And after some time at that high altitude, and knowing that the rat wasn't making any noise, the gnawing had stopped. When he landed on the ground, he found that the rat had died. That gnawing rat represents in so many ways the many gnawing struggles that we face on a daily basis as children of God, as Christians. You know, many, if not all, the gnawing struggles that we face on a daily basis can be dealt with if we, like the pilot, deal with it by climbing to a higher altitude in our Christian walk. And what I would mean by that is that as we strive to be more like Christ and follow His example, the ultimate example that we can follow in our lives, some of those gnawing problems that we face can be handled efficiently. And I hope that you've learned a little bit about from that illustration of just how we can handle some of the problems and struggles that we face in life. And we definitely face them. Not only with our current situation, but every day, always, in every situation, in every year of our life, we have those obstacles and things that we must overcome. And again, I would encourage you to go to a higher altitude, to follow God's ways, to follow His will, and that'll help you tremendously in your life. Let's go ahead and read from Genesis chapter 21. This passage is about the birth of Isaac, and we're going to follow some of Abraham's life in the first part of this chapter. It says here in chapter 21 of Genesis, "The Lord visited Sarah as He had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as He had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, laughing. And so she said to Abraham, Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham on account of his son. But God said to Abraham, Be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whatever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman also, because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. She departed and wandered into the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the child under one of the bushes, and she went and sat down opposite him a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot, for she said, "Let me not look on the death of my child." And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Up, lift up the boy, and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin of water and gave the boy a drink. And God was with the boy, and he grew up. He lived in the wilderness and became an expert with a bow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. And for time's sake, we're going to quit there. But notice again in that passage, you had the birth of Isaac, the son that was promised to Abraham. Of course, you had the other son that came to Hagar, who was not promised to Abraham, yet he had tried to work out the promise of God on his own without God's approval. Yet God still heard this child and Hagar, the mother, and he did save them, of course. So again, you think about that passage, and you can continue to read chapter 21, and through the life of Abraham, you'll see a man that obviously struggled in life. He didn't make every decision perfectly. But again, he was a man that obviously wanted to follow God. And when he was wrong, he tried to make things right. And he's definitely an individual that we can learn a great deal from today. I hope that this has been a beneficial devotional and Bible reading to you. And may the Lord bless you richly as you seek to follow His will.